Welcome back to Soul Screen, the channel where we dive deep into the heart of Korean dramas, the stories behind them, and the hidden layers that make each narrative unforgettable. And today, oh boy, we need to talk about something that every K-drama fan has been buzzing about again. Yes, we're diving into Taxi Driver 3 and specifically the 7 unshakable principles that define Kim Do-gi. Because let's be honest, Kim Do-gi is not just a K-drama character. He is an entire moral philosophy wrapped in a leather jacket, driving a bright blue taxi that somehow feels more iconic every season. Taxi Driver has always delivered the thrills, the car chases, the disguises, the undercover missions, the unpredictable villains. But underneath all of that, what keeps us watching is one thing: Kim Do-gi's unwavering moral compass, in a world where almost everybody seems willing to bend the rules. And in Season 3, that contrast becomes even sharper. Now, before we jump into these 7 principles, let me ask you guys something. If you were in a world where the legal system fails repeatedly, where victims are ignored, and where criminals walk free because they know how to play the system, would you follow the law, bend the law, or break it entirely? Would you do what Kim Do-gi does? Or would you walk away because the bigger fight feels overwhelming? Think about that as we go through each principle today, because honestly, Taxi Driver is not just entertainment. It's a social question disguised as an action thriller. All right, let's get into it. The first principle that Kim Do-gi lives by is actually the foundation of the entire Rainbow Taxi operation. A case must meet one requirement. The system has to fail first. Do-gi does not step in just because someone cries for help. He steps in when the institutions that were supposed to protect people have collapsed. When police are corrupt, when prosecutors refuse to move, when companies bury the truth, that's when he presses the ignition. I think this detail is actually so important because it prevents him from becoming a rogue vigilante who acts purely on impulse. There's a structure, a threshold, a moral filter. And honestly, in real life, many people feel this frustration too. How many times have we seen cases in the news where victims don't get justice because money or power intervenes? Taxi Driver hits hard because it mirrors reality. Do-gi acts not because the system exists, but because it failed. And I want to know from you guys, do you think this principle protects him from becoming a villain? Or does it make him more dangerous because he's acting outside the law? Now, the second principle. Everything begins with observation and investigation. Do-gi never jumps in blindly. He studies every angle, every player, every possible outcome. He tailors each strategy with almost military precision. Honestly, sometimes he's like a one-man intelligence agency. This is something I truly admire about the character. He could easily rush in, beat up the bad guy, and call it a day. But that's not who he is. He works like someone who understands that justice without understanding becomes revenge. And revenge without control becomes destruction. His thoroughness is what sets him apart. I think this is also why the series feels grounded. Even when things get wild, you always know Do-gi has done the homework. Let me ask you, do you think this careful planning is what keeps him human? Or is it what makes him scarier to the villains? The third principle is one of the most debated among viewers. Do-gi's methods are harsh, but he never kills. He fights, he corners, he forces criminals to confront their own cruelty. But there is always a line he will not cross. In a genre filled with revenge stories and anti-heroes who take lives left and right, Do-gi feels almost noble. Restraining yourself when dealing with monsters is not easy, and the drama never tries to hide his anger. You see it, especially when cases involve helpless victims or remind him of his own past. But still, he never allows himself to become an executioner. Some viewers say he should go further. Others say that his refusal to kill is exactly what preserves his humanity. Where do you stand? If someone destroyed another person's life, do you believe punishment without killing is enough? I'm really curious to hear your take on this. Now, the fourth principle is one of my favorites. Do-gi's mission is not about avenging the victim. It's about preventing future harm. He cuts off the power that allows criminals to keep hurting others. He destroys their network, exposes their secrets, takes away their influence. It's not hurt them back. It's stop the chain. I think this is such a refreshing approach because many revenge dramas end the story with the villain falling. But Taxi Driver shows what happens afterward matters too. If one villain falls but the system stays corrupted, nothing changes. Du Jia's approach is systemic, surgical, purposeful. He doesn't just hit the criminals, he hits the mechanisms that enable crime. And honestly, this is why Taxi Driver feels more like a social commentary than just a vigilante show. It forces us to think beyond the individual bad guy. It asks, why do these people exist? Who protects them? How do they keep gaining power? Let me know if you think this preventative approach makes him more heroic, or if it feels too idealistic. Now, principle number 5. He constantly guards himself against becoming a monster. This is where Kim Do-gi becomes more than a badass character. He becomes a deeply human one. The trauma of his mother's murder is the backbone of his moral compass. Instead of letting the pain consume him, he uses it as a reminder of what he must not become. This principle is incredibly powerful because it shows how thin the line can be between justice and cruelty, especially when you're operating outside the system. Every time he chooses restraint, every time he pauses before acting, every time he stops himself from going too far, that is him fighting not the villain, but himself. And I think many viewers relate to this. You don't have to be a vigilante to know what it feels like to fight the darker impulses of anger or sadness. Taxi Driver uses action to explore something deeply emotional, morality shaped by trauma. Do you guys think this trauma makes him stronger? Or more vulnerable? And now we go to principle number 6. Du-ji never works alone. While he is the face of the operation, Rainbow Taxi is a team effort. Go-eun, Sung-chul, Hyung-gu, Jin-eon, each one places moral boundaries around him, reminding him of what they stand for. They challenge him, correct him, guide him, and sometimes stop him. This principle is incredibly important because it prevents the narrative from becoming a story about a lone wolf hero. It becomes instead a story about collective justice. And honestly, this is one of the elements that make Taxi Driver stand out. You can feel the trust within the team. The humor, the arguments, the emotional weight, they balance Du-ji's intensity. Without them, I think Kim Do-gi would have lost himself long ago, and it makes me think. In real life, how many of us need a team like this? People who keep us grounded, who tell us when we're crossing the line, who remind us that we're not fighting alone. Tell me, who is your moral compass in real life? Who stops you from making bad decisions? And finally, principle number 7. In every case, Du-gi listens to the victims. He doesn't just collect information, he acknowledges their pain. Many vigilante characters focus on defeating the villains, but Do-gi focuses on healing the victims. He gives them a safe space to express their trauma. He stands by them when the world refuses to. And even after the case is closed, he checks in on them. That detail, that follow-up, it shows that he sees the mission not as punish the bad, but restore safety. And that is what makes him one of the most morally grounded vigilantes in K-drama history. It's easy to fight for justice. It's harder to care for the healing after justice is delivered. I think this is what makes Kim Do-gi unforgettable. He turns justice into compassion. Now, looking at these 7 principles together, we can see something very interesting. Kim Do-gi is not a hero. He's not a legal authority. He's not a monster either. He is a man who operates in the gray zone, but with a compass that is always pointing toward one thing: conscience. What fascinates me about Taxi Driver 3 is how consistent the writers are. In many long-running dramas, the hero's personality changes. They become darker or softer or more extreme depending on the plot. But Du-ji, he is stable, unshaken. Season after season, no matter how much more brutal the criminal world becomes, his moral center remains the same. And that consistency is rare, even in Western vigilante stories. But let me throw a question at you guys. Does Kim Do-gi's consistency make him unrealistic? Or does it make him the ideal we wish existed in real life? Personally, I think his stability is the fantasy element of the show. But the pain, the frustration, the sense of injustice, that part is painfully real. Taxi Driver 3 pushes us to reflect on something deeper. What does justice mean when laws fail? What does morality look like when the world is unfair? And how far can a person go before they lose themselves? Kim Do-gi's 7 principles are not rules for being a vigilante. They are reminders that even in darkness, humanity must remain intact. So I want to hear from you. Which of these principles do you agree with the most? Which one do you think is the hardest to maintain? And if you were in Kim Do-ji's shoes, would you follow these 7 principles, or would you create your own? Let's open that discussion in the comments because honestly, Taxi Driver 3 leaves us with more questions than answers, and that's exactly why we love it.